And today I want to talk about the qualities, and this is going to come from a sutta I'll share later, but the qualities that the Buddha said fill us with joy and happiness and lay the foundation for getting rid of all the defilements. So that's a pretty tall order. What a great thing to be able to discuss. So we'll start with some meditation and just find a comfortable position. And check in with your body. See how it's doing. See if there's anything you can do to help it be a bit more comfortable. I actually start putting my attention on my breath almost immediately, probably because of a long habit of doing it. And I can use the breath to actually calm the body just by breathing in, breathing out. And I'd like you to reflect for a moment on what it is in your life that brings you joy. Or maybe a better way to put it is, what is it that you delight in? Is it the people, maybe family members or friends or your pets? Or maybe you find delight in places, someplace where you walk or spend time. Maybe the forest or the ocean or the beach or the park or the city. Or maybe there's some activity you delight in. Maybe a hobby. Maybe you delight in your work. Maybe there's some kind of service that you delight in, giving, helping. Maybe you delight in the practice or delight in the Dhamma. Notice how it feels when we think about what we really delight in, what we enjoy. How it brings us happiness. And right now, in the present moment, with mindfulness, we tune into that feeling, feeling in the body and in the mind. One thing we can notice if we reflect on joy and happiness and what we delight in is how long the delight lasts. And where does it lead? So now we'll draw the meditation to a close. And I want to share a teaching of the Buddha on joy and happiness, and actually the qualities that bring us joy and happiness, and lay the foundation for letting go of or eliminating the defilements. And I'm going to share the screen. The Joy and Happiness Sutta. And I included some Pali here because I think it's so cool. Sukha Somanasa Sutta. It's a great word. And the Buddha said, mendicants, when a mendicant has 6 things, they're full of joy and happiness in the present life. And they have laid the groundwork for ending the defilements. And what 6? So there's only 4 sentences in this whole sutta. So those are 2 of them. So what's 6? It's when a mendicant enjoys or delights in, I like delights in actually, when a mendicant delights in the teaching, and when the mendicant delights in meditation, in giving up, in seclusion, in kindness, and in non-proliferation. And then the last sentence is, when a mendicant has these 6 things, they're full of joy and happiness in the present life. And they've laid the groundwork for ending the defilements. So I just want to share a little bit about each of these 6 and encourage you to think about how this shows up in your own life and your practice. So, delighting in the teaching, the word for enjoying or delighting in is aramo. I'll show you the Pali. Arama or aramo, it depends on the part of speech, but arama is delighting in, enjoying, or finding pleasure in something. And here the Buddha is saying, if as practitioners we find pleasure in the Dhamma, and here Dhamma means the teachings, the truth of the way things are, what the Buddha taught. Dhamma Ramo, it's a compound. These words are made up of 2 parts, and the arama goes on the end. So you can put that arama, what you're delighting in, on the end of some noun, something, and then you this is what you're delighting in. So delighting in the Dhamma, and this is maybe an acquired taste for as we start to pick up the Buddhist teachings and start to really experience how incredibly powerful it is, and how beautiful, and how supportive and liberating, literally, it is. And I really enjoy as people come into this community, and they're picking up moral virtue, of course, and also enjoying maybe reading the suttas, and excuse me, I remember someone once said, I'm reading the Majjhima Nikaya for fun now. And it was just such a sweet thing to hear. But however it is that we take in the Dhamma, seeing what it is that brings us joy. And, if there are pieces of it that really don't, what I want to say, we're not yet understanding, or don't make sense to us yet, or, we don't quite know how to put it in the right context, maybe, or something like that. My recommendation is to just set that aside for the time being and really put attention and effort on the parts that are resonating and the parts that we can really identify for ourselves to be true. The things that are showing up in our life that are bringing joy and happiness. And then when the second one, talking about delighting in meditation, it's bhavana. So it's really delighting in every aspect of the practice of our development, of our mental development, of seeing how our life is changing and finding joy in it. And as people have been practicing with the vasa and various ways in which we've been, picking up different practices and evaluating how they're going. I think this is very important to see what it is where we can delight in. And I can see that there's really good reflection on whether or not a certain practice is supportive at this time and how to adjust things to make use of those practices. And it's really beautiful to see, using a lot of discernment and recognizing that the practice really permeates every aspect of our life. Everything that we do and everything that we experience becomes part of the practice. And especially when we recognize the freedom that it brings to us and the stability that it brings to us, and we really begin to delight in it, to rely on it. And so I really want to encourage seeing bhavana as not just meditation, kind of like, echoing a little bit here, Ajahn Ganha, wanting us to see that the practice comes in every respect, in our work and in our relationships and in all of the ways we bring our attention, our awareness, our wisdom to what's happening in our mind at any point in time. And certainly this is the way the Buddha taught. Right effort really is around abandoning unwholesome states and developing wholesome states of mind. And so this sutta is pointing at these 6 kind of wholesome practices, attitudes, qualities, and really taking delight in them, helping them develop in us. The third one is Pahana, which is about giving up or letting go. And I put the definition down here. It's not always obvious and immediately, like, what is the quality of giving up? This is because it's Pahana Rama. It's enjoying giving up, taking pleasure in abandoning, and we're abandoning what's useless, what's unwholesome, as was pointed out earlier, like even just our material things that are, everything takes time, space, money to take care of. And can we find joy, take delight in letting go of those things that we know to be either dragging us down or unnecessary or inhibiting our growth and development. So giving up and really, really putting attention on the feeling of freedom from carrying around this load. So a lot of times what we're giving up is our conditioning, the way we have been observing the world, or the way we have been taking things in, or I appreciated someone's comment earlier about, really making the determination to, being careful with speech and not saying negative things about people. These negative mental states, can we give them up? Can we find a light in it? And the next one is viveka or paviveka, which is solitude, seclusion. And it can be a physical kind of seclusion and solitude, having time to ourselves. Can we enjoy that? It's a good question. Sometimes we're very conditioned to want to have someone else around or something going on all the time, and we have trouble being alone. So it's good to look at why that would be, if that's the case, and to really see when we enjoy our time to ourselves, to have quiet. So it's not just about being by ourselves, it's also about being with our own mind and how to enjoy the solitude, the quiet, the stillness as the mind becomes more still. It's paviveka. And the next one is abhyapajaram. It's like abhyapajaro is the one of the factors of right intention. So it's goodwill. It's an absence of ill will, non-ill will. But that's always considered to be the foundation of kindness. So the translation here is just kindness. But when we take it, when we look at that, really what the word means, especially when that arama ending is put on it, we're delighting in goodwill, we're delighting in benevolence, we're delighting in non-ill will, we're delighting in kindness. And to really make that an important aspect of our life and our practice. And then the sixth one is non-proliferation. Nipapancha aramo. And it's enjoying the lack of proliferation, mental non-proliferation, not taking pleasure in manifold ideas. Make things simple, not letting the mind run wild. And this is really a helpful collection. And to notice the power of it, that this is, the Buddha saying these 6 qualities, these 6 things bring us so much joy and happiness here and now in the present life. And then we've laid the groundwork for ending the defilements, and to think about how that's possible. But you can see as we incline in the direction of these 6 qualities and we cultivate them, then we, obviously it seems apparent when you really think about it that unwholesome mental states, unproductive, negative habits, the asavas, begin to fall away. So taking delight in the Dhamma, taking delight in our practice, taking delight in giving up and letting go, taking delight in seclusion, taking delight in kindness, taking delight in non-proliferation, quiet mind. So sometimes we can have the conditioning to really see things in a goal-oriented way. You know, whatever practice we pick up or whatever sutta we read is 8 of these things or 6 of these things or whatever, and then we put it in that, we overlay a model of striving towards a goal of accomplishment. And sometimes that can really, well, there are times when that's really can be helpful and we actually can be inspiring, but there are other times when it can be constraining or debilitating even. And so like when we're talking about evaluating what we're doing in our practice, the adhitanas we pick up and how we're using them, so important to really come back to the mind. I was listening to a Dhamma talk of Ajahn Pasano the other day, and he was referring to something that he had heard in a talk by Ajahn Manindo around, instead of being goal-oriented, be source-oriented. Right? Instead of striving towards a goal, coming back to the source. That has kind of a, I don't know, a flavor to it that's sounds a bit more, I guess, Christian for me. But it's like what is the source of the Dhamma, and how do we ground ourselves or come back to that, you know, and really it's the knowing, it's the mind, the Dhamma. And then Ajahn Pasano talked about this beautiful formulation from one of the students of Ajahn Mun. Luang Dun, and he restated the Four Noble Truths, starting with the cause of dukkha. And he said the cause of dukkha is the mind going out. And that dukkha, the first noble truth, is the result of the mind going out. And so you can see, like, even this, I'm delighting in non-papancha. You know, this would be, you're coming from this place of the mind not going out, the mind being right here with the mind, you might say. That this is where we can develop these qualities. And then the other 2 parts of the Four Noble Truths, he said that the way to the cessation of dukkha, the cessation of suffering, is for the mind to see the mind. So we're right here with the citta, observing the citta, and that the cessation of dukkha is the mind seeing the mind. And this is very related to one of the strong teachings of Ajahn Mun, which was to really have clarity about what is the mind and what is the activities of the mind. So what's citta? And what is citta sankhara? And that they're different. And this is something that Ajahn Chah really took away and used for development, from what I understand from Ajahn Mun. And it's very important that we see that all of these mental states that we have and these experiences that we have, this is all part of the Chitta Sankara. This is what's going on, the activities of the mind. And if we really use, like really observe, then we can see, what is really the basis? What is really the stillness of the mind, the wisdom of the mind? What is really the ground that we can stand on to observe our practice, to observe our attitudes, to see what our habits are, and what really inspires us and brings us joy, and how that joy and happiness become an indicator as to like what it is we want to put our effort into and our attention on, so that those defilements, those creators of dukkha, begin to fall away or continue to fall away. So now I would love to hear anything you might want to ask or say about this. Yeah, Anne.
So I'm very excited to hear this. I'm delighting in the Dhamma as you speak. And actually in this whole concept of the 6 qualities, which I haven't seen them in this particular list before that I think that I recall. But the context for me is that me and another person who lived here have started a study course on the paramis. And so we're bringing in different speakers, although I'm speaking on generosity on Wednesday. And, I'm saying that very humbly, I have to tell you that, but I'm really loving the depth that when you really look at something, be it generosity or whatever, the depth that you can experience, that I'm experiencing. So I'm just interested in you saying again where these 6 qualities came from. And are there, they're not like the paramis. There are a lot of lists. This isn't one I've heard of before, or maybe I have, but it passed me by. So could you say a little more about where it came from?
Yes, I'll actually share it again so you can see. This is in the Anguttara Nikaya.
Okay.
It's in the Book of Sixes, which makes sense. Number 78, and it's just a statement of the Buddha's. This is one of the many wonderful teachings that we have, and it's quite it's such a joy to explore the suttas and see these gems, that you might pass over and then sometime come back to and really see that when we really dig into them, they're so precious and valuable.
And I actually have a question about the paramis. Somebody was saying, the paramis, this was in the introductory session, and somebody made this statement that I've thought about, and it doesn't really matter that much, but they said, the paramis are really for daily life and not really for on the cushion, or that they were distinguishing something, I don't know what other list it was, but saying, the paramis are really for daily life and not so much on the cushion. Well, that didn't really have a lot of meaning to me. It felt like it was sort of a useless distinction, but I'm interested in what you would say about that.
Well, I wouldn't say that myself. And sometimes when I hear something that I think, I don't really agree, I try to look for how would I think that might be true? How could they mean that?
Right.
But I do feel like, the paramis, I think I've been trying to expand, as you can tell in the talk, the way we think of practice, because the practice, and Ajahn Chah said this too. He said, when you finish meditations, when you're sitting meditation and you're getting up, don't think you're ending your practice. Just think you're changing your posture.
Yeah.
And, when you move from meditating in the hall to walking out and chatting with a friend, you should still be practicing.
Yeah.
And so I do see, some of the paramis, like even generosity, or even, compassion, or no, that compassion's not part of the parami. Sorry. Wisdom, it's definitely part of the practice on the cushion. Metta, upekkha, and
Yeah, no, that was my thought too, equanimity.
yeah.
Yeah, that there isn't such a distinction, but it struck somebody and they said, oh, that was really interesting. I'd never thought about it that way. And this person saying, oh, that's really useful. And I thought, I don't really think it is, but I just had the opportunity to ask you that. But yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm loving this list, all of it, and this new list from today. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for your comments. Neil? You're muted.
Before I make my comment, I wonder if you could share the bottom part of it, because I have the sutta, but I really like having the definitions alongside, and I can do a screenshot for myself.
Indeed. There you go. These are just from the Polytext,
Right.
Polytext Dictionary, Polytext Society Dictionary, and yeah.
What am I doing? Control S. Okay. Okay, I got it. Thank you. So, so I had a moment during the meditation, and then you reminded me of it again when you talked about making a distinction between the citta and citta sankhara.
Mhm.
While you were talking in the meditation, you had us going through, like, thinking about the things that bring us joy, and a handful of things went through my mind, and I was enjoying all of those thoughts. And then at some point you said, I don't know if you said it exactly this way, but you said, now where is that? How does that feel? I don't know if you said specifically how does it feel in your body, but how does that feel? And for a moment, I had this bodily feeling, I want to say somewhere between my heart and my stomach, that was joy. And in that instant, the thoughts, the things that had created that feeling were gone. And there was just the feeling. And so I thought, well, wow, there can be joy without object. And so, so that's brought me back to that when you talked about the distinction between the citta, which was right here, in my body, versus the citta sankhara, which were all these wonderful thoughts of things and places. And I wonder, the question that arose for me is there a way in any situation in life that may not be normally joyful for you to do it the other way around, to find that feeling in your body and bring joy out to whatever it is you're in? And
yeah, especially if you ground. I don't know, did you want to say more?
well, I was just going to say, and in a way that makes me feel like, isn't that almost a definition of equanimity? To find joy
Yeah,
in everything, despite the circumstances. I don't know.
it can be related to equanimity, but it's also really, um, it can be the joy of being grounded in the Dhamma. Like this, you really can. Yes, I think this is a way that we can understand maybe that very short sutta where the Buddha talked about the mind being radiant and the defilements adventitious. They just come through. Well, when we really are getting skilled and developing the habit, if you will, to be centered in the mind, centered in the chitta, centered in the Dhamma, then this is a way from which, this is a grounding from which we can develop our mind, develop our qualities, develop our practice. And, another very beautiful kind of simile and image is the moon coming out from behind the clouds that the Buddha uses. And he talks about someone who picks up sila and, makes that change in their life. And it's like the moon coming out from behind the clouds. Mm. And this kind of way of really being present in with the radiance of the mind, with the radiance of the Dhamma, and developing from that place. So yes, and I think that feeling in the body, I think this is why it's so helpful to be aware of the body and how our insights that arise, what feeling they bring with them, and to pay attention to that and come back to that again and again. And how it feels when we're generous, and how it feels when we're kind, and how it feels, like when we're delighting in these good things. And then to be able to really bring that up, really bring that up in the heart, like you said, regardless of what's happening. And maybe it's not exactly what equanimity is, but equanimity arises out of that, I think. I think that's what you're kind of pointing at.
Mm. Yeah, and as you're speaking, I'm feeling some. Let's see. I think you mentioned about the mind being radiant, and I think that reminds me again something that I always forget, that there's a difference between the mind and the brain.
Yeah.
Because the mind, or I almost wish we didn't use mind. I wish we just could use chitta, because that's if I had heard the mind being radiant before, I would have said, my mind is never going to be radiant. But that's not what it is. It's it's the chitta. I guess you could say the heart. For me, it's that. Even that is too biological as opposed to spiritual. But yeah, I think so. For me, this is also related to the part in the sutta about non-papancha. I don't know. I'm going on and on now, but yeah, this has been very valuable. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. Adrian?
Yeah, thanks, Ayya. Is there I was just wondering if there's an important distinction or a difference between pahana and nekama, because they both seem like it's the same kind of English translation. So I didn't know if there's like an important difference.
I'm not sure I can articulate it at the moment, but I think when we find these words in Pali, that seem like they're the same thing. Like the Buddha will often go through a whole string of synonyms. And Pali is very precise, so you can look more deeply. And Nekama is, of course, part of the paramis, so Anne's going to have her chance to check that out too. Yeah, I think it would be useful to look at the places where Pahana is used and start to get a sense of the flavor of it. For me, Nekama has more of a renunciation, like renunciation has a different flavor sort of than this one. It'd be a useful exploration. Let me know what you find out.
I can tell you what Ajahn Sucitto says about Nakama if you want.
Okay. In
one sentence. And this is one of my favorite all-time books, Ajahn Sucitto. Paramik Waste Across the Floods. So Nakama, he says, the ability to let go of the pull towards a sense object.
Okay.
And renunciation, the ability to let go of the pull towards a sense object, Nekama. I don't know if that helps Adrian's question, but that's just it's one oracle.
Right. Yeah, I think there's definitely a big overlap with Pahana, but there is definitely a different sense there too. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, Anne?
Yeah, I did actually. It was just to ask if you use chitta as heart mind, which Sucitto often does. I don't know if he ever doesn't, but not just the mind, the heart mind. Do you ever use chitta?
Yeah, chitta is translated as either heart or mind, and a lot of times you won't see both heart mind, but you'll see it translated as one or the other.
Okay. And
it really does have it lands differently for us, I think, at least for me too. It's like when in the chanting book that we use that came originally from England, when the Amaravati, or when Chitter's monastery was established as the first Ajahn Chah branch monastery in the West, someone, I think it might have been Maurice Walsh, but I'm not totally sure of that, translated the chants that they were doing in Pali and Thai into English so that the English Sangha could chant in Pali and English. And the text that comes right out of the suttas for the Brahma Viharas, that chant, would be sometimes translated as, I will abide pervading 1/4 with a mind imbued with loving kindness, and then the next maybe another printing of the chanting book, it would be, I will abide pervading 1/4 with a heart imbued with loving kindness. And it's kind of been used interchangeably in English. Of course, the point is that chitta is both, not the brain or the physical heart, obviously, but what is mind? What is heart for us? That emotional side, that wisdom, logical side, that's all in one place in the teachings of the Buddha in the Pali. So really coming to understand what that is very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
welcome. I really appreciate everyone's practice, and I hope you have a really wonderful week. Thank you.